Guys, this is Miss Casey and I am back with another reading and art class project for us, and so we are going to be learning about the book Aquicorn Cove. Some of you may have already read it, some of you may be halfway through it, and some of you may have not read it at all, and that's okay. Whatever point you're at, this project is going to be fun no matter where you are, no matter if you know about the book or not. It's a very awesome, beautiful creature that we're going to be creating, and the book is also really fun to talk about, so we'll be talking about that, and I really hope you guys enjoy it, so keep watching. Alrighty, so as I said, our book that we're working and going to be inspired by today is Aquicorn Cove. Okay, and so here's a sample of what we're going to be making today. Now, I'm going to be creating the species of aquicorn, just like we see here from the book. But what we're going to be focusing on today is not necessarily an aquicorn, but a new species. So you can create a new species inspired by the Aquicorn Cove book that we read. You can create an aquicorn to fully be inspired by the book, or you can just create any underwater new species using your own imagination, and that will also be having us be inspired by this book, because the author, Katie O'Neill, who we'll talk about in just a moment, but she wrote and also illustrated this book, this beautifully written and illustrated book with the aquicorns and all of our characters and beautiful scenes and settings. And so we kind of want to dive into our imagination and think of how we can create our own new species similar to this aquicorn. Okay, so again, we'll talk about our book in other points in just a moment, but for this project, you are going to be using watercolors, and we're going to use watercolors for basically our whole picture, our background, our species here. And so you want to make sure that you have a good enough paper, like Bristol paper or watercolor paper, to work on. We're also going to be using a little bit of color pencils, and that's going to be for any final small details or shading that you may want to add. So I'm going to be using my watercolors and color pencils. If you don't have these materials, then you can use any other materials that you have. Any other materials will work. And so this is just mainly going to be a fun project for us to feel inspired by the book. We're going to talk a little bit about the book and aquicorns and how those were kind of developed. But I really want to encourage you guys to create your own species, to create your own stories behind them. But we'll talk a little bit about how our author created this and why. Okay? And so you want to make sure you have your final paper, your materials, whatever material you're going to be using, and let's go ahead and get started talking about our book. So I'm going to have my little story chart here. I'm actually going to move my supplies over a little bit so that way you guys can focus on our book. Okay, so for our chart here, our title and author, I kind of already mentioned that, but for our title, we have Aquicorn Cove, and our author and illustrator is Katie O'Neill. Now for our characters, the book isn't all entirely about aquicorns. That is one of our characters, especially a specific little baby one, but our main character that the book follows is a young girl named Lana. Okay, and so Lana is the one who finds this little baby aquicorn. And so when she discovers the aquicorn, then the aquicorn becomes a character in our book as well. But we also have some other characters that that come along the way. We have not just human characters, but also underwater sea creatures like the aquicorn, and we end up discovering this whole underwater world full of other magical, beautiful creatures. So a couple of our other human characters that help Lana along the way is Aunt May, and that's Lana's aunt. We also have Lana's father, and then a few of the other villagers around town. And then again, as I said, we also encounter the underwater sea creatures, and so those become some characters in the book also. Now for our setting, we have a couple of settings. As I mentioned just briefly, we have some villagers, which means one of the settings is a village. It's a seaside town or village. And then that's where the beginning of the book kind of starts. But then we also have the coral reef, this underwater magical world where all of our sea creatures live. And so that also becomes an important setting in our book. Now, I keep saying book, but I do want to let you guys know this is a graphic novel. It has a lot of beautiful pictures. Like I said, Katie O'Neill wrote it, but she also illustrated it. And so we have like really a lot of pictures, really beautiful illustrated pictures. So this is a book, it is a graphic novel, so it's very similar to like a comic book. Okay, so that makes it really fun to read. So if you guys haven't read this, I really hope you guys feel inspired and get excited to read it because it is really beautiful and fun to read. Okay, now apart from that, getting to our plot here. So I'm going to tell you guys just a little bit more points about this book and kind of what's going on. And then once we talk just a little bit about our book, then we're going to stop. I'm going to talk about the second half of our chart about halfway through our project, and then we'll talk a little bit more about our character and why we're drawing aquicorns or making up our own species. So we'll go over that in just a moment. But to go over our plot, we have Lana, again, our main character, who's a young girl, and her father returned back to their home seaside town, so a hometown, which is by the seaside. And so they end up going back to help Aunt May and the other villagers clean up after a storm. So if you don't know, many towns and villages that are near the sea, they tend to have, if it's really windy or if we have like just a regular rainstorm or something like that, by the sea, those kind of storms could actually be very damaging to their little towns or villages. Natural disasters like hurricanes or tsunamis can cause a lot of damage, and these small towns and villages end up having to do a lot of cleanup after storms like this hit their town. So that is what Lana and her father have come to the village to do and help with. And so while helping, Lana is kind of walking near the shore on the beach, and she finds a baby aquicorn in the tide pool. So this is where we meet our little baby aquicorn, and she discovers this species, and she hasn't really seen anything like this before. So she rescues it, takes it home with her, and she helps kind of raise it and help it grow along with her Aunt May. Aunt May helps her as well. But as she discovers this aquicorn, she also starts to learn a lot about where the aquicorn lives and comes from. She discovers this underwater, beautiful world with more aquicorns and other magical sea creatures. And so after discovering this world, she starts to learn how the villagers have abandoned a lot of traditional ways. So there's parts in the book that tell us that a long time ago, the villagers and the underwater creatures kind of developed this tradition or this plan to help coexist with each other. And so Lana has found that the villagers are not meeting their end of the deal, and so what that is and what she ends up finding out is that they are overfishing. So they are fishing too much, and they are getting more fish than they are supposed to, leaving the underwater sea creatures without food. And this is also destroying their ecosystem and the coral reefs. And so essentially this is destroying their home. So Lana is very saddened to hear about this, especially knowing that the adults that she looks up to are part of the problem, and she wants to make it right. So we go through her adventure, all of her learnings, and this whole journey that she takes throughout the book. So we'll talk a little bit more about the rest of our book, and we'll, especially the second half here, as we go through our project, and then halfway through the project, we'll stop and talk a little bit more about this. So I'll go ahead and leave the book at that part. And if you have read it all, then you can kind of figure out what we're doing and pull a little bit more inspiration from the book. But if you haven't read the book, I'll also talk a little bit about it as well as we do our project. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and set my chart to the side, and I'm going to bring back our sample here. Now the reason why I'm bringing this back is just to talk a little bit more specifically about this species, the aquicorn, because if you are not drawing an aquicorn with me, which I encourage you not to, because I really want you guys to think about a completely new species that lives underwater and what you think that species would look like, how you think they would live underwater, and I'm going to tell you guys basically how this aquicorn kind of came about and was created, so that way it can give you guys some inspiration to create your own species. So an aquicorn, if you guys can't already hear it in the name, the aquicorn takes a couple of elements from different creatures that we already know and love today. So aqua, part of the name, could be translated to like ocean or water. So that's the first part of the name, aqua, and then corn, you may have already guessed it, but that part comes from a unicorn. We have this little horn right here at the top of the head. So an aquicorn is basically similar to a unicorn living underwater. But we also have these other elements that doesn't necessarily show it's specifically comes or identifies as a unicorn. So a couple of other elements that we find are, and it's also mentioned quite a lot in the book, but this creature looks a lot like a seahorse, okay? And so that's one of the elements that this creature kind of takes from. So it's a seahorse, a unicorn, and then we also have these big, beautiful wings, 2 on each side of its body. And those, we know a seahorse don't have wings, we know unicorns don't usually have wings. So the wings could kind of be pulled from possibly like dragons or something else, maybe like another magical creature. And so in developing this new species, the author and illustrator Katie O'Neill has pulled many different elements from magical creatures and realistic creatures to create this new species. So when you guys think about your new species and you try to imagine what you could create, you want to think about many of the different sea animals or land animals or creatures that are still alive and we know today. Even some creatures that don't exist or are not alive today. But you want to think about everything that could exist and some ways that you can combine them, the same way that a couple of elements have been combined to create this aquicorn. Now, we do want to make a species that live underwater, so that way we can keep it similarly to Aquicorn Cove, and maybe they could be the friends of aquicorns. But you want to think of things like maybe a sea turtle, or a shark, or a mermaid, things that are real and maybe things that are not real. So you can maybe use like a Pegasus, or a dragon, or a unicorn, or a fairy. So think of creatures that are not real, think of creatures that are real, and then how can you combine them to create a whole new species. So I really want you guys to have fun with this, use your imagination. The most important thing, it doesn't have to be a beautifully created right from the start species. Again, you kind of want to have fun with this, you want to experiment a little. So the main part of this project is that you have fun, and if you don't want to create a whole new species, then you can definitely follow along with me as I create this this aquicorn here. But after we create this together, I do recommend that you go in and think about, now that you've created an aquicorn, what species could you now create all by yourself? Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead. Now for our drawing today, we are not going to be doing a practice draw. We're actually going to go straight into our final draw. And the reason for this is because everyone's going to be doing a completely different creature, animal, species, and I'm going to be doing an aquicorn. So if that's what you'd like to follow along with me, then you can definitely follow as I draw. But everyone that is doing a new species, your animals may not even have the same body structure. So we're not doing a practice draw because you guys are basically going to do your own thing. So if you'd like to do your own form of a practice draw and kind of think of different elements that you can pull from different creatures and animals, then you can practice that and put it all together and then create your species, and then you can work on your final draw, and then we can all do our coloring steps together. Okay? But if you'd like to draw an aquicorn with me, then go ahead and follow along. Again, we're not going to be working on a practice draw, so make sure you pay close attention. And if there's any steps that you need more time with, then you can always pause this video and continue on where you're at once you're ready. All right, so you guys are going to be using a pencil, but I'm actually going to start with a Sharpie just so that you can see my lines a lot better on the screen. So again, if you're not doing an aquicorn, then go ahead, take your time and create your whole new species. Have fun with it. Like I said, it's not meant to be perfect right away. Just have fun, create what you can, and then we'll get started on our coloring steps in just a short moment. If you are drawing an aquicorn with me, go ahead and follow along. We are first going to start with the head. So make sure your paper is turned vertical up and down because our aquicorn is a very long creature and it has a curly tail like a seahorse and it has long wings. So we're going to keep our paper up and down. So we're going to start on the left side of our paper and we're going to draw a circle for the head. Once you have that circle for the head, we are then going to draw a sideways letter U coming from the bottom of the head and connecting to the side of the head. This is for the little snout. Now once you have that, next what we're going to do is we're going to draw these curved lines down for the neck. So the neck is pretty long. We're going to start from the back of our circle for the head and draw a long line that comes down and then curve it about halfway. Now we're going to come down right close to where the snout, at the bottom of the snout and the bottom of the head meet. And you're going to draw a curved line that comes down just a little bit shorter, about half of our back of the neck here. And then you're going to bring it out. Okay. And we can extend that line out a little bit more. You're going to bring it over like to the middle of your paper. Once you have those two lines, next what we're going to do is we are going to start drawing our wings. So the wings are really big and beautiful. So right at the end of this line here, we are going to draw a line that comes up diagonally, and then you're going to bring that back out to the right, and if you have room, then you can go ahead and just bring it up close to the end of your paper. If you don't have room, again, these are very big wings. I don't really have that much room, so I'm going to bring it off the paper to make it look like it's cropped. All right, once I have that, then I'm going to draw the bottom of my wing. So what I'm going to do is start in the middle of the paper, which is where the middle of the body would be. And so you want to get about maybe a 3-finger space. And so right underneath where the start of your wing, where you started your wing, you're going to draw a curved line like a letter U, a small curved line. Then you're going to draw a big curved line for a second U, but make it wider than this first one. And then you're going to draw a diagonal line. And you want that diagonal line to make it look like the tip of the wing is coming out into a point. Kind of looks a little bit like a bird right now. So once you have that, what we're going to do next is we're going to draw the rest of our wings. So we have 2 wings on each side. So now right along this second big U, we're going to draw a line that comes from the bottom of that big U and out to the side of your paper. This wing, would be a little bit shorter than our top wing. So if you had that space to be able to finish up your wing, then you should have enough space for this wing, and you want to make sure that's shorter. Once you have that, we're going to come back down to the start of our wing where these letter U's are. And right underneath that, maybe about a 2-finger space, you're going to draw another small letter U, a wide letter U, and then a line that comes in. And again, you want to make it look as if it's going to come to a point. So they start getting thinner as they end. So those are for our wings on the right side of our Aquicorn. So now we're going to finish up the body. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to continue this curved line over and then stop just a little bit more. Okay, now this is where I'm going to start my feet. So right in front of this line that I just drew, I'm going to draw a curved line like a letter C from the inside of the body and down just a little bit further. Then I'm going to curve it over and around. So this is for the front of the foot. And I'm going to draw a big letter U for the very tip of the foot. And then I'm going to bring that back up, over, and up to the bottom of the body. And I want to bring that up into the body, actually. All right, now once I have that, I'm going to add a second letter U at the very end of the foot. And that's just a little detail line. Now I'm going to draw the rest of the front feet. So this is for the foot on the other side. So this one's just kind of peeking behind this front foot. So I'm going to draw a curved line down, almost to touch my foot, and then bring it straight down past my first foot, because this one is bent, if you can see. This one's going to be a little bit straighter. Then I'm going to draw a big letter U and connect it up to the top, or to the tip of my front foot. I'm going to draw the second letter U at the very tip. So now that I have those feet, next I'm going to finish up with the tail. And so the tail is really long and curly. So we're going to start on the other side of this foot here. Make sure that the body kind of lines up on the other side. And then you're going to draw a line that comes down, and it's going to curve around into this spiral shape. So once you have that line, then we're going to come underneath this wing that we have on the right, the very bottom wing, and you're going to, again, kind of match it up to this side of the body. And then you're going to bring it down and curve around to match up with this side. I'm going to just curve it a little bit more. And you want to make it thinner as you reach the very end. All right, now I haven't closed off my tail just yet, so keep watching. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to draw a curved line like a rainbow, and then we're going to draw a triangle shape at the very tip and finish that tail off. Okay, now along the tail we have a little bit of some like fins that come down, so we're going to draw a couple of fins at the very tip of the tail and a couple of fins at the very end of the tail. All right, so right along the middle over here, I'm going to draw a curved line that starts inside the tail and comes out. And then I'm going to draw 3 curved lines like a letter U that comes back into the tail. Then underneath that, I'm going to draw 2 letter U's and draw a diagonal line to meet at the end for the other side. Now we have this line from the tail that comes inside, so you have a pencil and you're just going to erase that line inside. Now lastly, we're going to have some little fins on the inside of our tail over here. So we're going to basically do the same thing. Draw a curved line from the inside of the tail out. Draw 3. This time it's going to be like sideways letter U's or rainbow lines. Bring that into the tail, and then you're going to draw 2 little rainbow lines coming out and a diagonal line in to touch for the other side. Then you want to erase that line from the tail inside of the fin for the front fin. All right, so we have those details there. So the body of our Aquicorn is basically drawn out. Now we're just going to add some more details. We do have some wings that are in the back, and so we're going to see a little bit of those. And then we're also going to draw our face details. Okay, so for the wings in the back, we are going to start along the back of the Aquicorn. You're going to draw a curved line that comes up. Okay, and once you have that curved line, then you're going to draw a straight line that comes up nice and tall. And then you're going to curve it at the tip and bring it down straight. Once you have that, then we're going to add just a little tip of the second wing, and it should be shorter so we don't see much of it. We're just going to see a little tip. So curve it at the tip and bring it down. So once you have that, now we're going to add a couple of face details. So we're going to start with the eye. So we're going to come in the middle of the face, right in the middle of that circle that we first drew, and you're going to draw a curved line like a rainbow, but it's going to slant a little bit. And then you're going to bring an oval shape or like a teardrop shape in halfway. Then right above that, you're going to draw another slanted rainbow. And then right above that, you're going to add a little oval shape. Once you have that, then you're going to add a slanted oval right at the tip of the snout for the nostril. And then right above on the right side of our head, right above the eye, we're going to add our horn. And it's a little baby horn, so we're going to draw two lines that come up like a triangle, and then you're going to curve it at the point. And then at the very bottom inside the head, you're going to draw a little curved line to show where it attaches. Then you can also add a little curved line inside the horn for some detail. Next, we're going to add the ears. Now, Aquicorns have very big ears. So we're going to start at the top of the head, and we're going to draw a curved line that comes up and back. You're going to curve it at the tip, and then bring it down, curve it in and out till you reach the bottom of the head where the neck connects. Then once you have that, right in front where that first line started for the ear, you're going to kind of bring it down a little bit into the head to show how it connects. And now we're going to draw the back ear. So it's very similar to the wing. The ear is kind of flipped, so we're not going to see much of it. It's on the other side, and this is basically the back of that ear. So we're going to draw a curved line up and then bring it straight, curve it at the tip, and then bring it down and curve it in to the top of the head. All right, so now that we have all of those details, we're going to go in and just finish up some of the details. So we're going to go at the very tip of the foot, add two curved lines for the toes. You can add a couple of curved lines for some detail and texture in the wings. And once you're done with those final details, that's all we're going to be doing for our Aquicorn. So if you were working on a new species, if you were working on a new species, then you can go ahead and finish up with that if you haven't already. If you need to pause the video, if you're still working on some parts for the Aquicorn, you can definitely pause and finish off where you need more time. And next, what we're going to do is we're going to work on our background details. So the background details are not going to be too much. However, whether you did an aquicorn or a new species, you can kind of change some details for the background if you'd like. But first, what we want to add is the ground line for our background. So you can make your ground line a little bit higher, you can make it a little bit lower, that's up to you. I'm going to make mine just below the feet and right along the tail. So I'm going to draw a curved line that comes up and then below the foot comes into the tail. You want to continue that line wherever it hits. And so I'm drawing a wavy line because sand does not usually flatten out perfectly, usually has a very irregular line. So I recommend drawing a wavy line. You don't want to have it too wavy, like waves of an ocean, but you also don't want to have it too flat. So once you have your ground line, then you're going to add some details in your sand. So as we know from the book, aquicorns live in the coral reef, and that's a big setting in our book. So you can, if you want and you have the book with you, you can kind of pull some inspiration from a few of those pictures. You can see how Katie drew the coral, and you can draw coral that way. You can draw coral how you want to and how you know how. Or if you want, you can make up different types of plant life for the underwater world that your species lives in. So you can just have fun with this extra step for the background and these details. Like I said, if you wanted your sand, your ground line to be a little bit higher, maybe you'll see a little bit more in your ground. If your ground line is low, maybe you'll add a couple of extra details in the water, maybe some other species. Maybe you'll have some fish. Maybe you have some fish that are floating in the background. So you can add any details that you want. I'm going to go ahead and add some coral similar to what we see in the book. She has these very thin stem-like kind of coral. And then along the sand, you kind of see these like pebble stone shapes. So if you'd like, you can add similar details, or again, you can make up your own. That's up to you. But once you are done and you have added the details that you'd like to add, then that is all for our drawing. So once you are ready and you have added everything that you want, then you can go ahead and continue on